Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for Wednesday, May the 4th, 2022. Pursuant to Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022, this meeting of the Somerville Zoning Board of Appeals will be conducted via remote participation. A recording of these proceedings can be accessed at any time using the registration link at the top of this agenda. It is again May 4th and it's 6:01. Tonight we're going to go through the agenda. We're going to mix it up a little bit. We're jumping down to other business, which are the board elections. We're going to have the elections tonight for the balance of the 2022 year. At this time, I'd like to open up the nominations for chair. Are there any nominations for chair? Ann Brockelman.
Madam Chair, I'd like to nominate you, Susan Fontano, as chair.
Thank you. I accept that. I'd like to remain doing what I'm doing. I enjoy it. So I'd like to accept that. Do we have a second on the nomination?
Second.
Seconded by Ann Fullerton. Are there any other nominations for chair? No, hearing none and seeing none, we'll close that, the nominations for chair, and ask the clerk to please make a motion for the vote.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to vote you in as our chair for the next year.
Thank you. That'll be for the balance of 2022.
Thank you.
Okay, Ann Fullerton.
Aye.
Thank you. Ann Brockelman.
Aye.
Thank you. Catherine Garavaglia.
Aye.
And Susan Fontano, aye. Let the record show there were 4 members tonight, which is a quorum, and it was unanimous. I thank all of you. I really enjoy it, and I hope you're happy. And at any time, please let me know if you think I can do something better. I'd appreciate it. At this time, I'd like to open the nominations for clerk.
Madam Chair, this is Charlotte Lee speaking. I would like to note for the record that Josh Safdie, who is unable to attend tonight, has reached out to me and indicated that he is interested and willing to continue being clerk. If someone would like to nominate him, I think he would accept that nomination.
Great, thank you. Well, in that circumstances, I'll nominate Josh Safdie for clerk. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Ann Brockelman seconds Josh Safdie to continue as clerk for the 2022 calendar year. Catherine, would you please make a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the nomination of Josh Safdie as clerk for the remainder of the 2022 year.
Thank you. When I go around, please cast your vote. Ann Fullerton.
Aye.
Ann Brockelman.
Aye.
Catherine Garavaglia.
Aye.
And Susan Fontano, aye. I'll let the record show again, we had our quorum for people, 4 members voting in the affirmative. And so Josh will continue as clerk for 2022. For the minutes, congratulations to Josh. And that's it on the elections. I just want to say one thing before we do go further, is that Josh isn't here tonight and Catherine is acting clerk. I want to publicly say thank you. You've been doing an awesome job, and we'll look forward to having you bail us out whenever need be. We appreciate it. Thank you. Going back to the agenda, there was no minutes to approve tonight and no scheduled withdrawals or anything special. We're gonna jump right to the public hearing. And we have number one is 292 Beacon Street. Is the people here, Charlotte, can we go forward with the Kenneth Spears here? Spera?
He
Kenneth
is
Spera
not,
and see.
but his attorney, Rich Mucci, I'm really sorry if I butchered that, is here and has been unmuted. Rich, if you can unmute yourself, you should be able to speak.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you for entertaining me tonight.
What's the matter? Ken didn't want to come see us tonight?
I think Ken was going to try to call in. He's not very good with technology.
Technology. Okay,
That's why we're here
So
asking for an extension.
yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit why and what's been going on and how far are you folks?
Sure. So my name is Rich Mucci. I'm the attorney for Ken
Madam-
Spera.
Madam Chair,
I'm
if I
sorry,
may, this
hello.
is Charlotte speaking.
Yes,
I would just like to note that all of the cases tonight except 426 Clyde Street are new cases. So if we could have
oh, I'm sorry, thank you.
Acting Clerk Garavaglia to read them into the record as we open them, that would be much appreciated.
Thank you so much, Charlotte, to keep us honest. Catherine, would you please read the legal notice?
Yes, ma'am. I just want to clarify, we are starting with Beacon Street. That's correct.
Yes,
Madam Chair, I'd like to open 292 Beacon Street, which is P&Z number 22-047. The applicant, Kenneth Spera, is requesting an extension to a previously approved variance, which was ZBA 2018-118.
thank you very much. I'm sorry, Mr. Mucci, can you continue, please?
Yes, I can. Thank you. So I represent Ken Spera. Ken was before this board in 2018 on a phase 2 plan for a condominium project at 292 Beacon Street. The ZBA decision on the variance and special permit that was issued ended up being appealed by an abutter, and that was a lengthy appeals process that didn't resolve itself until July of 2020. When that process was resolved, it was the height of COVID at that time, and that set my client back significantly in the process. In addition, there had to be some condominium changes made that have been made, and my client is mobilizing on the application at this point. We should, with the help of an additional party, should be engaging in this project relatively quickly, in getting building permits, applications in, and moving along, with the planning and actual building of this phase 2 of this condominium development. We are
Great.
here just, what I understand is a 6-month continuance on the variance. The special permit does not expire until June of 2023. And so this will just give us a little additional time on the variance part of what this board has previously allowed that we're requesting.
Okay, so I want to get the dates right. I believe, let me see something here. Aren't we talking 6-month extension? So it'd be December of 20, it's supposed to be June, right? June, what is it? June what? Give me the date.
So the variance expires now June 15th, 2022. We're seeking
15th,
extension till December 15th, 2022.
correct, great. And that's unfortunately, that's as long as we can do it. It's the 6-month story. Is there anyone in the public, for the public portion of 292 to 294 Beacon Street? Is there anybody here that would like to speak to this for or against?
For any of the members of the public who would wish to speak on this application, you can let us know that you want to do that by either clicking the raise hand button, which looks like a little hand, or by messaging us in the chat box, just letting us know that you wish to speak. We cannot accept public comment through the chat box. I will give it a moment or two more, but I'm not seeing anyone who wishes to speak. Oh, okay. Sophia Manasia, I think. I'm sorry if I've mispronounced your last name, but you are unmuted and should be able to unmute yourself and speak to the board.
Good evening.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Excellent. My name is Sophia Maniaci. I live at 81 Sacramento Street behind the property. I would like to know who exactly will be building out the property.
Mr. Mucci?
My client has, he is the declarant of the condominium, and he is has the phasing rights. He will be transferring those to an entity named Capital Equity Partners, LLC. I'm not sure if that will be the LLC that will build, but they will be, they have a history of doing some projects in Somerville, and will be building basically the designs that have been approved by the city of Somerville and this board.
So to be clear, he's selling the property to someone else.
There's no transfer of property. It's he owns phasing rights. The property is owned by the condominium complex.
Okay, so Capital will be building and then overseeing that condominium, or just building it and then who takes over from there?
So there's already, this is phase 2 of the condominium. So there's
Oh,
already
I'm quite aware of it.
Madam Chair, if I may, I do
Yes,
want
Ms.
to note
Charlotte.
that this is the public comment portion and not an opportunity for discussion between the applicant and members of the public. I will also note that ownership is not necessarily something that is within the considerations of whether or not to grant an extension.
Let me ask the public, Sophia, if I may use your first name, I don't mean to be disrespectful.
Absolutely.
What's your
Absolutely.
concern?
Well,
Why do you ask the question?
because we hired Kinspire to build our property right behind it. And it was so inept and so ill-conceived and never executed upon that I'm concerned for the property behind me, clearly. We're having to engage another contractor. So I have great concerns. And so I just want to make sure that he himself will not be the builder, that somebody else will actually come in and execute that property, and he will not be himself building it.
Mr. Mucci, as we go down the road, can this person find out this information? Like we said, this is a public portion for them to speak a little bit, but how can she get some information to make her content that this is going to be her neighbor and a building's going up? Could she get a hold of you?
he can, and I can say on the record that Mr. Sparrow will not have any involvement in the building of this project.
Excellent.
Good. Okay, great. Thank you. Is there anybody else to speak for the public?
Madam Chair, I am not seeing anyone else indicating that they wish to speak.
Okay, so at this time, I'll close the public portion of the 292 to 294 Beacon Street, P&Z 220047, and open up to the board for their comments and consideration. Anybody have anything to say, or are you pleased with the, yes, I'm sorry, Ann Brockelman.
Madam Chair, just to be clear, again, to repeat, the applicant's letter requests a year extension of the new date of June 2023, but we cannot grant that, right? It's a 6-month
No.
extension, which would be December
Mhm.
2022. Okay. And,
Yes.
you know, I'm in the construction and architecture industry as well. Regardless of who, the background of any project, I understand that COVID has been very hard for the building industry. So I don't have a problem with extensions to the past 2 years. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Thank you for your input. And we're quite sure on how this is going to read, Miss Charlotte?
Yes,
what
Madam
the
Chair.
date is. Okay,
The-
so it's definitely extended until December 15th of 2022.
Correct.
Okay. Catherine, yes, Catherine, comment, please.
I have a few questions for the applicant's counsel. Just to be clear, the memo that's submitted, is the applicant only looking for an extension? Because there are two other paragraphs in this related to addition of a common area of a walkway and an amendment to the exclusive use area. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding correctly.
Yes, so the package that was submitted to the planning department, and my understanding is the changes we sought were all de minimis changes, and the only thing that needed to come before this board was the extension of the hardship variance.
And are those two changes that are outlined here the condominium changes that you referenced earlier in your intro? Or are there additional changes?
I can't remember what I referenced in my intro, but they with Ms. Lewis in the planning department, I think they've been allowed and we're satisfied.
Sure. So when you initially started speaking, you had mentioned that there was litigation that was ongoing and that had been finally resolved, and then there were condominium changes. So I just want to make sure that there are no additional changes of which we should be aware.
Correct. There are no additional changes that be aware of.
Thank you, Catherine. Good evening, Miss Lewis.
Good evening, Madam Chair. I was thought I would pop on camera just to let you know I'm here and to see if there are any additional questions. So the Mr. Mucci is right. They were minor delineations on the plan. All the landscaping numbers and everything remained the same as had been originally approved. And so there were some minor material changes, extended brick instead of crushed stone, but still pervious. So changes for the better.
Thank you so much. If I, that's it. Your considerations, you like the staff report, I like your comments. Is there any other input from you other gals? Ann or Ann? No? Okay. So we'll close that and we'll ask the clerk to make a motion for approval. Catherine, we can't hear you.
I apologize.
Okay.
Just for my own clarification, because I was reading dates while we were saying dates. So we are extending through December what of 2022?
15 of 2022.
Thank you.
1-5.
Madam Chair, in the matter of what is the new number?
22047.
Thank you. Where the applicant has requested an extension of a hardship variance through December 15th of 2022, I recommend we approve the extension.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ann Brockelman. All in favor as we go around. Ann Fullerton,
Aye.
Ann Brockelman,
Aye.
Catherine Garavaglia,
Aye.
Susan Fontano, aye. Let the record show to the clerk that it voted unanimously for in the affirmative. Good luck, Mr. Mucci, and pass it on to your client.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your consideration tonight. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Next case on the agenda is going to be 263 Washington Street. Again, Catherine, it's a new case, so would you please open it up for us?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to open P and Z 22-044 for 263 Washington Street, where the applicant is proposing a major amendment to a previously approved special permit. That special permit is identified as ZBA 2017-40.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Is Philip Sema here?
Madam Chair, Philip Sema is here and has been unmuted.
Thank you. Welcome, sir.
Hi, thank you so much. Charlotte, do I have the ability to share my screen or should I just talk through this?
I can give you the ability to share your screen. It'll mute you and then unmute you, so give me one moment.
Sure, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Are you able to see the title page which says 263 Washington? Great.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So my name is Philip Sema. I'm the architect for the build out of the restaurant Juliet, which is on the ground floor of this commercial development. And so what we're doing tonight is asking to waive condition 22 of ZBA 2017-40, which read that any and all future occupants of the commercial space in this building are required to appear before the ZBA for special permitting for the use, parking, and build-outs of the commercial space. And Juliet Restaurant, the owners, Josh and Katrina, are also on this call, are requesting this. And the reason why we're requesting this is because back in 2020, Juliet, which is an existing restaurant right next door, engaged in conversations with the landlord to move into the space and move their restaurant there. So we did our due diligence, asked if there was any zoning issues. We were told that there wasn't from the building owner. In 2021, we received a building permit to do the commercial fit out for the space, full architectural MEP and such. And so we've been working on the construction and we're planning on opening at the end of April. When on March 31st, we received a notice from ISD that this project requires approval from the ZBA, and the reason why we're asking to waive it, although we think it's very much in line with what the board would like, we can't really risk having a decision saying that the restaurant use wouldn't be allowed because it's almost complete. So to familiarize everyone, we're right on the corner of Washington Street, or right in Union Square. We're the second parcel down. So this is the building that's highlighted here, is the project that was approved in 2017. It used to be, I believe, a funeral parlor. And so this is what was approved, was basically making this ground floor commercial space on the left, residential entry here, and then residential units above. And so we took over the ground floor commercial space, which is in the top of the plan that extends all the way to the back. And so it's Juliet Restaurant, which is right next door. So their current location is here, and then they were going to move it over to left, which is the building that we're in discussion. And it's a wonderful restaurant, which I'm sure many of you have been to, but it's been at that spot for 6 years, and it's now moving to a kind of much more a better space for the restaurant. And so these were the plans that were submitted to ISD back in 2021 for the building permit, showing, a bar, banquet seating, back of house, kitchen, restroom, and bathroom. And then these were the photos, or sorry, this is the design concept, the general vibe and aesthetic of the restaurant. And so as of a couple weeks ago, this is where we are at with construction. So we're nearly done. So that is why we're hoping that we can waive this condition, as we didn't know about it until a month ago.
Ann Fullerton,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Ann,
I
you
have
have something to say?
Yep. For Charlotte and Ms. Lewis, so is the reason that the tenant is requesting this change instead of the landlord because once the tenant leaves, number 22 would then go back into effect?
I'm sorry, can you ask that
That's was
question? a
gonna be
little
my
further?
question.
Let me follow.
Yeah, so the original determination was special permit was given to the landlord. So I'm asking why the landlord is not requesting the waiver on number 22 for this specific space rather than the tenant. Right now, the tenant is in front of us requesting it. And what I'm wondering is if planning directed this organization so that in the future we would still have the option to have any prospective tenant come in front of the board, or is it that we're looking to remove number 22 in perpetuity?
I think there's a, I believe the landlord has been involved in all of these conversations, and Phil, you can correct me if I'm wrong here. It just so happens that, that the tenant was the one that applied for it, but the landlord does have, is aware of what is happening. Your point is a very good one. That sort of I would have liked the landlord to have asked for it himself, but at this point in time, given the situation of the restaurant, it was sort of a method to try and at least help keep them on track somewhat.
So if the board decides to approve the waiver for number 22, would that be then specific to this particular tenant then, and not a change to the overall special permit?
If the board so chooses, we can add a condition to that effect, or it can, or it could be completely struck. So that is up to the board.
It should be noted that the tenant also has a 10-year lease for the space, so they'll be there for a long period of time.
Okay. Ann Brockelman,
Just to back up a bit, the reason for this typical condition, for everyone's benefit, is that previously we had to weigh the use, the number of occupants, potential uses for, we do this a lot for commercial properties, and they often come with parking variances, right? The need, usually there's not enough parking in these commercial areas. Again, this is the old zoning, right? Usually it was too much parking that was needed. So all these commercial outfits, whether it's, sushi restaurant, then a beauty parlor, different allowable uses had to come before the board each time to make sure that it would not, be detrimental to the neighborhood in terms of, neighbors are very sensitive to trash pickup, traffic, and all that. So that's why that was a condition that was pretty much as a standard applied. Would that be a good summary, Madam Chair and Sarah? So that
I
would
agree.
not
That's
be in
exactly
favor
it.
of striking it completely, because this is a very common condition that we apply.
Did you
I
say
think-
you would not want to strike it
No,
for the future? Right, okay.
because we would, reserve the right to review the appropriateness of this use. I think for me, the way to weigh it would be if the applicant wasn't pressed for time and would come under normal circumstances, a normal timeline and protocol, would we have approved it or not, right? So they're just asking us to, the way they presented it, they didn't want to risk being struck down, was a strange way of putting it. Because we could strike it down now or later, right?
If I may, so there's two things going on, and what's difficult for the applicant before us right now is their landlord while the building itself is complete, they never closed out the certificate of occupancy.
Mm,
So when ISD approved the build out for the restaurant and they went through their process, it was only at the very end, sort of the final check, did it come to the attention of ISD that the base building C of O had never officially been closed out. And so that's the hole that we're trying to wrap up. It's been a little bit convoluted, to say the least. And I do not know why it was never closed out. But because this was a condition on that, then all of a sudden we find the restaurant use before us, even though they've gone through the full ISD process.
Can I ask a couple more
Yeah.
questions?
Well, you know what, Ann, we usually do our little questions, Q&As after the public. Can I see who's here from the public, please? Then I'll go right to you. So at this time, I know we have a bunch of questions, but I'd like, Charlotte, would you open it up to see if there's anybody here from the public that would like to weigh in, see if we can help them?
So as public comment is now open, if there's anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this case, you can let us know one of two ways, either by raising your hand, which is a little button that looks like a hand, or by sending a message through the chat. We cannot accept public comment through the chat, but we can unmute you if you let us know that way. I will give it a moment more. Madam Chair, there's no one indicating that they wish to speak on this case.
Okay, thank you so much. So at this time, I'm going to close the public portion of 263 Washington Street, that's P&Z 22-044, and go back to the board for their questions. Ann Brockelman, you were speaking?
Yes, a few questions. So is the building currently occupied then, the upper stories?
Yes, so all the residential units are rented out, I believe. I mean, they're
Without a CFO?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a different problem that the landlord's in, I'm sure. Okay. Is the move expansion for the restaurant? I'm just curious, you know, what's the increase in number of seats from next door?
I do not know, and Josh and Katrina, you're on the call. I'd probably say, you know, there's probably maybe 20 additional seats at a best guess.
Okay, that's fine.
Are they there? Excuse me, Ann, I want to piggyback on that. Are the applicants there? Hello?
Madam Chair, this is Charlotte speaking. Josh, you have been unmuted. If you unmute yourself on your end, you should be able to speak.
Hello. Sorry if it's
Welcome.
noisy around me. I'm in the old restaurant right now serving dinner.
How many do you seat there, Josh?
It's more like an additional 30 seats.
30 seats? Okay. What are you serving now? How many?
26.
Okay, so you'll be like 60 or under?
Yes, I would have to look at the plans to let you quote me, but I think so.
The building permit set, just for clarification, the calculation was a 73-person occupancy.
Thank you very
Got it.
much, Ms. Lewis.
That includes some private dining space, so that we wouldn't necessarily be using all the time. The main dining room is more like 60.
So I'm going to let Ian speak, but so just for the record, it's going to be business as usual, just moving over in a newer, brighter, a little bit larger space.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm sorry,
Thank
Ian.
you.
Thank you for the courtesy. Go ahead.
Final question, and again, I don't know if this is within our purview or what we're deciding on right now, but when the design versus now, I mean, I've walked by this place as well. Images were flashed. They didn't look similar. Were there a lot of changes on the exterior? Again, this
So
is not related to the tenant, but I just couldn't help noticing it.
yeah, I don't know. These were plans that were provided by ISD as to what was approved, I think initially, and then there's a CD set that's different. I really can't speak to that as I wasn't the architect for it.
Can Sarah Lewis fill us in?
I can look into that. I think there were a few minor changes, sort of as there usually are due to construction, but I don't think it's anything major. I was just trying to look up in the background on CitizenServe to find out the status of the base building project to answer Ann's question, because I would imagine in order for those units to be occupied, they have to be under a temporary certificate of occupancy to have people living there. So I was just trying to find a little bit more information on that.
Okay, no further questions from me. Thank you. Madam
Thank you,
Chair.
Ann. Catherine or Ann, do you have any questions? It's beautiful. It's real sleek. It's real pretty. Ann Fullerton.
I apologize for the team that's proposing in front of us right now. I just wanted to second Ann Brockelman's concern about what the actual built condition looks like versus what we're seeing in the presentation, because I'm looking at the Google Earth, the street view, and it looks like a different project. So it's not this party's problem, but while we're here, I wanted to mention that. And thank you, Sarah, for pulling up the maximum allotted head count quickly. That was helpful.
Well, do you ladies, you're seeing plans and then you're seeing the build out. Is it okay to you still? Is what's there in front of us okay? Or do you have a problem?
I can do a little math if that helps regarding the parking issue. So there's one thing to keep in mind as Ann had mentioned, the old code was constantly over parking everything.
Yeah.
This is right next door to the existing restaurant. So under the old code, and I don't know how many staff would be in this space, so it's going to be a little bit more than this. But just based on the 73% occupancy, it's one parking space for 4 seats, which ends up being about 19 parking spaces, which if you think about the way Union Square works, it's absolutely insane. And the other thing to keep in mind on this one as well is it is within the transit area. So under the new ordinance, there wouldn't be any required parking for this
TOD.
site. Yeah,
TOD.
exactly. So I know it's difficult for me to be talking about the new ordinance to you when this project is old ordinance, but it's sort of it's in a limbo position right now. So I think it merits to think about where we were and then where we're trying to be.
Thank you. Catherine, any comments? Or are you content with the presentation?
I do have a question. I don't know if it's allowed, so Charlotte, please tell me if I need to stop. Sarah Lewis had mentioned looking on CitizenServe for permits, and it does appear that there is an occupancy permit issued for this address in February of 2020 related to the ZBA decision we're talking about. Is there a way to know if that was temporary? I'd just like to understand the whole totality of the circumstances.
Mm-hmm. This is Charlotte speaking.
Well,
I
let
think
me
that
add-
question is appropriate.
While you're thinking that,
hard to find.
Charlotte, Is the address the same for this 263 for the restaurant as it is the other residents? Now, none of these are condos, right? It's all rental?
I believe they're all rentals.
You believe, don't you know?
I wasn't involved with the project. I'm just the architect for the commercial space on the ground floor.
Unfortunately, Madam Chair, I am not finding the information as to temporary C of O for the residential units on CitizenServe right now. But that is mostly because I am not a I'm not a heavy user of CitizenServe. So I will keep clicking in the background, but I'm having not much luck.
Understood. There's an occupancy certificate for 4 condominium units and 1 commercial space related to Zoning Board of Appeals Decision 2017-40. The permit is CO 18-000256. I guess my questions are, I'm not understanding how build out made it this far in the process without anybody catching that there was a requirement for approval. That seems interesting, given the due diligence that goes into negotiating commercial leases to me. Is there an explanation available to how this happened?
Well, I don't know, Josh, if you have anything to say about your lease negotiations with the landlord. However, it was asked to the landlord directly whether there were any zoning issues as part of, the architectural design, and there was no response that we received, and that's why we proceeded to go ahead with the building permit.
I have a feeling that I can follow up with ISD and just for, sort of our own edification, sort of try to understand what happened. But at this point, it's a little bit forensic. And so it's sort of the, trying to move forward was how we were looking at it. I have had some conversations with ISD, but as I said, it's sort of like reconstructing what had previously happened or been inspected.
I understand, but I feel like the special permit probably would have been of record, and all of this goes into diligence work in negotiating a commercial lease. So none of this is adding up on my end, but you are correct in that we are here now, and it does look like a nice restaurant. I don't know offhand what the requirements would have been for HVAC installation or anything else, or if we would have other concerns, because what's been presented to me is, well, this is it, so we'd like you to just approve it, not here's where we would have needed an approval, and here's why we think it's okay. And I don't know that I care for that presentation of the facts.
Is there some, Catherine, so I get what you're saying, and I'm glad they caught it, whomever it was, whether it was inspectional services or the applicant. It doesn't sound like the landlord was in on this, but I'm glad it's caught, and I'm glad they looked at it. And it's like the last case, there are certain things that the planning, they know they're de minimis, and they look at it and they let it go. This is we want to know about going forward on keeping the condition on the file. I say keep it. I know it's TOD, I know it's Union Square, and it's really about the parking. The other stuff, I'm sure inspectional services at this point have gotten on this stuff. And, you know, everybody's saying it's because of the COVID. Well, the inspectional services of the city of Somerville is, they fall into the same category as well. I mean, it doesn't make it right. And a lot of things have been happening, and you and I spoke about the pandemic today ourselves. So it's too bad. It's not a good thing for inspectional services, but it's done. It's caught. Sarah's on this. She's looking at it. And it's the parking, and I know it's TOD. And there's never been any parking there. I mean, the Flaherty Funeral Home was there. The dry cleaners was there, Flares. And around the corner, it was all restaurants, Chinese restaurants, Indian restaurants, and stuff like that. So the area has been really streamlined and cleaned up quite a bit. And so I personally don't have a problem with going forward tonight. I asked that Sarah, she's our leader, really look into this with inspectional services. We used to, you remember when we met live in the chambers, we always had inspectional service person with us, Hans. We really appreciated him. And maybe as we go forward and we're getting back to they call it the new norm, that we might have the pleasure of inspectional services joining us, especially when we have cases like this tonight to speak to it. It's not that I don't interpret Catherine's question to blame. I just think that we're putting our name on the bottom line, and we want to do the right job and do the right thing. And you see young people like this, they're doing well, that they can expand, go into a nice, beautiful spot. You hate to burst their bubble, you know, and not get things approved on a timely basis for them to go forward. But we can't pencil whip this stuff either. Ann Brockelman, I'm sorry, Catherine, go ahead.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I didn't mean my questions and/or commentary to be a reflection at ISD. It was more for the presentation from the applicant. Typically, we have issues flagged for us that would have been, these are where we would have needed an approval or an issue. And I guess I don't have a lot of clarity on that. Is it simply just we would like a restaurant, or is there something other than we should have come here before? Is it just the parking situation that they would have needed, or is there literally nothing?
Well-
Through the chair, if I may, they would have required per the original approval, they would have required a special permit for the use. And so with that, under the old ordinance, there probably would have been a requested additional parking relief needed.
Okay.
And then, like I said, a special permit for the use. The other piece is just for clarification that sort of the HVAC that is referenced in the memo is actually all on the rear of the building. So there were some changes to the plans, obviously, but that is not visible from the public. So
That's the info that I needed to feel comfortable. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you, Catherine. Ann Brockelman.
I just want to confirm again that Sarah Lewis, you did find an occupancy permit for the building, right? We don't want to be in a position of giving, you know, approval to a tenant for a building that's illegally occupied, right? That's a risk to us, a risk to the tenant. So if there was a permit, whether you're going to figure out if it's temporary or final, you know, so that's done correctly, and that's okay. My second question is, do you see this condition being more obsolete? Again, sorry, applicant, it's kind of a different discussion, but related, with the new zoning, or do you think this condition will continue to be relevant in certain cases?
My opinion is that it is probably obsolete given the new zoning. This is and I would have to double check the map, but the pedestrian street gives it, you know, sort of the type of uses that will be in there will be pedestrian oriented.
Allowed, right.
Yeah, so,
There won't need to be all these variances tacked onto lots of commercial uses like we had to before. Okay,
correct.
thank you.
So with that in mind, are we saying then we could drop, if they got a 10-year lease, shall we just drop, like go forward from tonight? Because I think a lot of the new zoning and stuff too is cleaning up. It's not so many layers and layers and layers. I mean, they're, you know, that's why they come to us for the variances or what have you. So would the suggestion be we not continue condition number 22? Is that the feel of the board? Ann, what do you feel?
I'm not
Yeah,
in
Barbara.
favor of that, given what we're seeing or not seeing from the landlord. I think
Good.
they need to be held to whatever the original approvals are.
Good. And Catherine?
Apologies, Anne, I'm taking a different position on this one. I'm comfortable with the restriction being waived. There are uses that are codified in the code that would be allowed. If there was something outside that, then they would need to come before to get an approval for the variance. So I think that would capture any concerns that neighbors might have in this circumstance. So I feel comfortable. I definitely understand Anne's concern given the totality of the circumstances with what we're seeing from these parties though.
Okay. Ann Fullerton, did you have your hand up? No? Okay. So,
Madam
Madam Chair,
so, yes,
This-
who's speaking?
this is Charlotte speaking. This is
Okay. Yes, Charlotte.
simply a matter of clarification, but I do want to note the only uses that would be permitted are the uses in whatever is the approved list. If someone wanted a use that wasn't in that list, there would not be an opportunity for a hardship variance. Those are
Right.
not possible in Somerville.
Good.
The board, yeah, that is my only clarification note.
No, thank you. That's good to know. Because that's what we do. We kind of look, when something like this comes upon us, kind of look to the future. I mean, these folks might have a 10-year lease and we see what type of restaurant they've been running and it looks like they're going to continue to do so. But something happens in 5 years and they want to sell it to another restaurant and it may not be something the neighborhood wants or not necessarily even a restaurant. It could be a tattoo parlor, you know, so it would have to come forward then. So, okay. Well, if there's, you know, you guys all seen the conditions, you had the past reports to look at, the finding, the condition. So going forward, do we want to, it sounds to me that you folks are going to approve this. What I want to know also going forward for the considerations and the findings is that, are you happy with the staff recommendations? And do you want to keep condition 22 on file? I just assume keep it on file. Yes, Ann Fullerton.
I think that, thank you, Madam Chair. I think that that question for me goes back to my original question about the current applicant versus the landlord. I think if the landlord came to us and said, we recognize the situation that existed for Juliet, the applicant, and we would like to have that condition removed, I would be open to it because it's a very proactive response on their end. And you're right, Catherine, that there is a lot of conditioning in the new zoning that would restrict the occupants in a way that would be appropriate for that location. But I don't feel like that the condition, that particular requirement should be a condition removed as a condition of this particular permit for this particular tenant.
Right. If they came together, or he instituted it, you'd be more comfortable with the future of the building. Yeah, that's me too. Okay. All right, so I guess we have to vote on the, if somebody can help me here, I think we want to say that we'd like to keep the condition in place. So when we make our motion, we'd make the motion that that we'd like to approve the applicant's request for the special, as it says in the legal, you know, the
Madam
major
Chair.
amendment.
I think it's
Yes.
a one-time waiver.
If I could make
Right.
a suggestion,
Yes.
based on what the board has discussed, I would recommend adding a condition to this approval, limiting the scope of this approval to Juliet, and then voting to approve the request with that condition added. That would then effectively waive that condition for this particular applicant, but would leave it in place for future applicants.
I like that. Catherine, did you get that? Yes,
Madam
Sarah Lewis?
Madam Chair, if I may, I was scribbling
Yes,
as
please.
I was trying to scribble and Charlotte got there quicker. So I'd like to, if it helps you, I could recommend language that says an additional decision. This decision is limited to this use only. Condition 22 of the original approval, ZBA 2017-40, remains in place for any future commercial use.
Great. So if everybody's happy with that, I
No.
see hands going up. All hands are going up. We'll start with Ann Fullerton. Go ahead, Ann.
So, thank you, Madam Chair. So Sarah, I just want to make sure that it's not another restaurant can't take over the space and have the condition waived as well, because the word use, that's what it means to me. I mean this particular tenant.
Yes.
Ann Brockelman's in conjunction. You
Yes.
agree with that? And
Want
Catherine,
Juliet to be able to open, but we don't need to do any favors to the landlord who's not even involved, to put it bluntly, right? They're not even here, so.
Sarah, they want in the wording that it's for Juliet.
Yeah, this decision is limited to this tenant, Juliet Restaurant only.
Yes. Is that
Or
what you
whoever's on the
ladies
lease,
feel?
Josh and, whoever's on the lease legally, whatever the legal entity for Juliet is.
Right. Good. I'm with that too.
Okay.
So Catherine doesn't have to say that. We're going to adopt what Sarah Lewis just said in our motion. Is that okay, Charlotte?
Madam Chair, I would, in
Can we
order
have
to allow,
Sarah say it in the whole entirety?
it is always very challenging, even when you're the director, to write a condition live. So I would recommend making a motion that you wish to impose a condition limiting this approval to Juliet, and then make a motion to adopt, or make a
The
motion,
wording.
to approve with conditions recommended in the staff memo and as discussed at the hearing. And then we can figure out the exact language to make it watertight after the
Beautiful.
hearing.
Okay. Yes, Catherine, speak.
Madam Chair, I still think it would be cleaner if we just made a motion to issue the applicant a one-time waiver of condition 22, subject to the conditions as contained in the staff memo. It's not
Ann
changing
Fullerton?
anything. It's not changing anything else in, we can also say that we're not changing anything else in the special permit as issued. And
Ann Fullerton?
What I like about Catherine just said is that I would like Juliet's ownership to basically be the owner of the waiver in case in 5 years they decide to rebrand. I have faith in their ownership, not necessarily in another ownership. And I don't want it to be limited to just the name, but allow the ownership of Juliet to have this waiver.
Can we do that?
so there's, So it's not successors or assigns, because we don't want them to assign, we want them to keep it, but any related entities that share common ownership.
Charlotte, Sarah, can we do that?
We can figure out how to do that exact, or how to do
Right.
the specific wording of condition, but I think based on the discussion that the board has had,
Understand?
we can, a general motion to encapsulate the discussion is sufficient, and we can figure out the exact wording of the condition based on this discussion, because I think we have plenty of detail
Okay,
to
all right.
understand exactly the intent of the condition.
Okay. The board, you're happy with that? Yes. Sarah, Lewis, you okay with that? Okay. So Catherine Garavaglia, would you please make a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, let me just, I'm clicking through screens to get the right page here. In the matter of P and Z 22-044 for 263 Washington Street, I make motion to approve the applicant's request per our conversation that we had previously, including a one-time waiver of condition 22 for the applicant and any other entities that share common ownership with the same. And subject to the conditions contained in the staff memo per all of our discussion.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Ann Brockelman, second. Go around the board here. Ann Fullerton?
Aye.
Aye. Catherine Garavaglia?
Aye.
Ann Brockelman?
Aye.
And Susan Fontano, aye. Let the record show it was 4 votes in the affirmative. Thank you, Philip, and thank you, Juliet. Good luck.
Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, go back. Done, done, done. There we are. Nice to see you, Sarah.
It's good to see you too. It's been a long time.
Yeah, so moving along, thank you, everybody. You really hashed that out. I like that. I like everybody's interaction. It's good for the system. It's good for the client. So the next item on the agenda tonight is 26 Clyde Street, number 2, P&Z 22010. Hello out there, are you there? The Burnses?
Madam Chair, I have promoted Jeff Burns to be the presenter, so if they wish to share their screen, they should be able to.
Okay. Good
Hey, folks.
evening.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Hello again.
So,
Be back before you. And
yeah,
thank you for your time again.
all righty. Let's see what we have tonight. We got these plans. Okay, now I just want to say something as we go forward here.
Mm-hmm.
Part of our approval of a variance
Mhm.
is we have a 3-step program that we have to fill in all the blanks. And I'm telling you, I keep looking, and I think Ann Brockelman had requested this before. On the plans that we had with us here, I'm looking at the old and I'm looking at the new. It's the 202, A202. There's no markings on the corners here on the right where your architect is supposed to show the revisions and stuff like that. And the other thing is, I don't see any measurements. That's what we're looking for, because the problem is the windows across the 20-foot dormer face. So when you keep sending us this stuff, and this isn't your bag per se, you're other professionals. I don't see any numbers. I'm looking right at the plans that we got this week, A202.
Mhm.
in A202, the same number with different
right.
drawings.
Mhm.
Why? They should have different numbers with correction, or this where it says the corrections. I don't have my binoculars on it, so small print. So you show us the roof line on one of them, but you're not showing us the actual layout of the windows, and that's what this is all about.
The-
We don't have any numbers in front of us. Is there, you architects that are on the board with us here, am I saying the right thing? Ann Brockelman, you had asked for plans before, remember? The last meeting of the meeting even before. When we look down, here's the question. The question is the window, the glass, the windows that's supposed to be in that space. It can be any shape, they can be this, like that, but they have to take up that space. There's no numbers here. How do we know the width of these windows?
The window width is on the windows. They say on each window there's a circle, and in the middle it says W10.
Oh, I could never see that.
Yeah,
I
you have
could
to.
never ever see that.
Yeah, I mean, I've zoomed in on the current state.
That's better. Yeah.
So that's on what you have in your hands, but it may be very, very small, unfortunately, if it's printed out.
Yeah, well, you
and-
should have, you know, we don't need all this big white space on this thing. They should have been bigger. Ann Fullerton, you had your hand up.
Yes,
Yes.
Madam Chair. I was going to say that you're right. I think that this probably is not the Burns's bag. So in lieu of trying to dimension in between the distances in between each set of windows, I think they gave us a running dimension of how much glazing, which is
Right.
noted below each elevation, which it aligns with what I was expecting them to bring to the table based on the last meeting. I don't recall if Ann Brockelman asked for something different.
Wow. Okay, so where are we tonight with the applicant? Mr. Burns?
Yeah, per the last time we appeared before you, you know, you seem to be done deliberating, but your consensus was that you wanted to have all of the paperwork part of the packet, you know, T's crossed, I's dotted before you wanted to actually make a decision one way or the other. And so you continued us to this meeting. We made sure we put together all of the paperwork properly, resubmitted it, which is what you should have in your hands. You have the existing condition, which states the current state of affairs and the relief we're seeking, and then the zoning conforming condition, which is what we would have to do were relief not to be granted, which is the second one that shows more windows. They are both page A202 because they are, the conforming one was meant to replace the non-conforming one in the plans, which is part of the mix-up and why it ended up getting constructed in a non-conforming fashion. So that's why they have the same page number, because they're taken from a non-conforming set of plans that was approved for construction and a conforming set of plans that was done up per the request of the design review portion of the whole planning process. So that's why they have the same number. But you know, my understanding at this point is we've submitted the paperwork you've asked for that clearly states the relief that shows both conditions, the as is and conforming, you know, so you have them in hands to compare and have that be part of the record.
Okay. What's the board? Any questions? What do you want to do? I still can't see them. You're showing me again. I still can't read them. You know, I'm very unhappy with this. This is not, whoever this architect is and making up these forms, this is not right. Go ahead, board. Ann Brockelman.
Madam Chair,
This is for a variance. This is for a variance. This isn't like an extension for another month or two. Go ahead, Ann Brockelman.
I understand the frustration, but I do think the Burns's summary is correct. I think we've deliberated, you know, this decision already, and it was a matter of getting the paperwork in. And the architect should know better. You never print the same thing twice. it at least should have a date on it, or 202-A-B. But I'm not gonna make Jeff Burns answer to his architect or for his architect. Any architect, you would just never do that. That's just not something you do. That's why they're labeled. That's why they're sheet numbers, and dates and revision numbers, and so it's just not done. But we do have the two documents, and they're labeled with big words, so that's fine. That's fine with me. We can go through the findings for a variance. Did we already discuss that last time, though?
No, that's what we really have to address tonight. Go
Madam
ahead,
Chair,
Ann.
if I may.
Charlotte?
So the two things that the board needs to discuss tonight, item number one, you'll need to go through each of the required findings, discuss whether you think it meets that finding and why, what facts of the case support that conclusion. And item number two, you'll need to specifically identify the amount of relief you're providing. As the staff memo notes, according to ISD, the existing shed dormer is deficient of approximately 5 feet of window space required. The applicant's drawings state that it is 9 feet. The board will need to specifically and clearly identify how much relief they are granting so that the decision can be written to accurately reflect what the board has voted on. And those are the two things from staff's perspective that are essential to have happen tonight.
Thank you. Okay. Who wants, Catherine Garavaglia?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think as part of our considerations for the hardship variance, this dormer does seem to be substantially larger than what may have been contemplated under the code initially with how it was worded. I think that is an unusual characteristic of the existing structure that doesn't really affect anyone in the neighborhood, except to the fact that if we were to literally enforce it, it would cause substantial financial hardship for the applicant. Further, I'm not sure their neighbors would really enjoy seeing more into their home than they already are. I think that we could approve their request without causing any trouble for the neighborhood or really taking away from the intent or purpose of the zone in which the house is located in.
So you feel under the criteria for number one, the special circumstances relating to the soil condition, shape, topography of the land is unusual character, existing structure, but not affecting generally the zoning district of which the land structure is located?
Yes, Madam Chair, I do think that this is a very large dormer, and that is unique.
Okay. Any other comment from the board? Do you agree with Catherine's? Ann's shaking her head yes. Ann Brockelman?
Yes.
Ann Fullerton? Yes, okay.
Madam Chair, I do want to note I'm not meaning to suggest that it may be relevant in this case, but a self-created hardship cannot be considered as the basis of a hardship variance. So if the board were to consider that this is a self-created situation, that could pose a problem. I'm not meaning to suggest that that is the fact in this case, but I just want to make sure that the board makes findings on solid ground.
Well, it wasn't. They inherited this. This is another case that came up, we talked about earlier about ISD. And then when they came to us, right? This is the case, right? That ISD had the plans, they approved something, and then when it came to the certificate of
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Ann Fullerton, you had your hand up. I'm sorry, Ann.
That's okay, Madam Chair. I was going to say the same thing, that this was a condition that the applicants inherited.
Yeah, I thought that had some clout, in our decision making. I know it's more, we're supposed to be very black and white, but So then we go to number 2 criteria. Literal enforcement of the provision of the ordinance for the district where the subject land or structure is located would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to the petitioner or appellant due to said special circumstances. This is what I think Catherine just referred to as well. And what are the facts of the case that led up to this? Here we go again. Do you, the Burnses are out there. Can you hear me, sir?
We can.
Hi. Now you have a temporary certificate of occupancy,
Correct.
and is there a expiration date on that?
There is, yes. I'd have to go double check what it is, but it is relatively soon.
It's been, we've had it pushed back several times to account for these meetings.
Right. And now I know about getting stock in. We've all had that issue. I had to wait 6 months for a refrigerator, you know. What, I know originally you said here in your papers was something like 15 weeks or something like that.
Mhm.
Is that starting now, or have your builders or anything have anything in the background holding for you in case you needed to get the 2 new windows?
The windows are on order as far as I'm aware, but that was.
They are?
They are,
They
but that was only a few weeks ago, and so I'm not sure of the state of that. I don't know if that timer has started. I don't know if that order is finalized. So, you know, if we were to be conservative, it may start tomorrow if we said, oh, we got to do it. I would have to check with the builder, you know, the contractor, to be sure of exactly what the state of that is. And I know that they don't have any inventory of windows that they could just show up with. They would need to be on order if they're not already. So many weeks for sure, even if that timer had started a few weeks prior.
Okay. Charlotte, a quick question. You might know the logistics of everything. So let's say we don't approve the variance tonight, and we say they got to get the windows. They have the clocks ticking on the temporary certificate of approval. Here we go again. If we had inspectional services here tonight, would they be able, if they show what I would call a proof of purchase, that they've ordered the windows, they're coming in, they're waiting for them, and inspectional services then extends the expiration date on the temporary certificate of occupancy? Do those things happen?
I obviously can't speak affirmatively for ISD, but if the applicant was showing due diligence with, so if the variance were not to be granted and the applicant's only remaining solution was to correct the problem through construction, I don't think I would be stepping out of bounds and saying that ISD would work with the applicant within whatever capacity they can to allow the applicant to proceed to construction and address this issue as needed.
So the glazing, let me ask a couple more questions. I want to ask the girls something else. The glazing is, when you add up these 3 numbers on the windows on the shed dormer, what do they equal? Mr. Burns, can you answer that for me? When
Sure.
I look at these here, right? And
Yeah.
this first one is 7.2 point something. And then, you know what I'm saying?
That's why I put the dimensions at the bottom. So it's 12 feet of window as it stands
Right.
today.
12 foot of actual glazings there, right?
Mhm.
And we're required
On the other one is 21 feet.
21. So that's the deficit is the 9.
Mhm.
Okay. What am I seeing this 5 foot? It was a 5 foot something for a while I was looking at. What was that referring to?
So per what Charlotte mentioned a few minutes ago, the staff memo states that we only need 5 feet of relief. Now, I don't understand that particular number or where it came from. I did ask for clarification from Reza, who is not able to be here this evening as she is taking time off.
Yeah,
But I don't know where
Charlotte covered for her.
Yeah, no,
Charlotte,
yeah.
can you help me with that? Do you know by any chance where the discrepancy between the 5 and the 9?
That number, the 5 feet of relief was given to us by the zone review planners and ISD, and I believe we have double and triple checked with them that is their understanding of how much relief is required. I can't speak to how they determined that. I don't know which particular plan set they might have been looking at, but that is what we have been told by them.
Okay, I just wanted to know that. That's important to me. Okay, Ann Fullerton, yes, please.
Just to piggyback on this issue, Charlotte, can you follow up with the board on how that math works, just as an aside? Because when I did the math, I came up with 9 as well, and I just want to understand for future what exactly the application of the glazing line plus 3 feet was,
So
and anything else they were adding.
my understanding is that the zoning code does not say the width of glazing plus 3 feet. It's the width of windows plus 3 feet. And I believe, although I would need to go back to my notes and double check this because I didn't get it ready for today, I believe ISD interprets windows to be more than simply the glazing within the window, but may also include window casings.
Understood. I mean, the window sizes that the Burns have include more than just the glazing too. That is the actual window order size dimension. So that window that we're looking at right now is 72 inches wide for the actual window unit, finished space window unit, not just the glazing. So that's why I'm just not understanding the math. And again, this can be an aside, but I'd just like to understand for the future.
I can certainly look into and get more information from ISD about how exactly they calculated that. I don't know if I'll be able to get you better information than Rice was able to get you, but I can certainly try.
Thank you.
May I piggyback on that?
Yes, Ann Brockelman, please do.
I'm interested in the zoning interpretation, not ISD, the way it's written in the code, because that's what we would be looking at.
You're referring to like on page 2 of the staff report.
That diagram that the applicant shown last week and how they got the, whatever X minus 36 inches, that's exactly from the code. And so,
yeah.
So it's for future projects. I don't know how ISD got 5 feet relief here, but I think it should be, what is the intention of the zoning code? How do you do that math from the code book, from the zoning? And was that your intention? Or did you want ISD's interpretation?
Well, so it's both. Okay. So it sounds like ISD has been guiding what has the relief requirement, but yes, you're right that we
need projects. When we look at the code book, what are we supposed to get out of that?
Correct.
Yeah, the ordinance. Yeah.
So you're saying, Ian, you got 9?
Yes, I agree with
both of you got 9.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, okay, ladies, how are we going forward here tonight? What do you think? As we look in the staff report, the hardship variance considerations. Catherine, how do you feel about this?
I think that sounds like the code's ambiguous, the calculation's ambiguous. That seems a little onerous to put on the applicant here. The windows seem nice. It looks normal for the neighborhood how it is. So I don't know that there's a lot to be gained from having them go in and add in a bunch more windows where their neighbors are going to be like, I'm really glad I can see more into your house. So I think it's probably makes the most sense to leave it alone and move along.
Okay. What you other gals, how you feeling on this? Do you feel we've justified the criteria? And when we make our motion, we read that right into the motion. on whether we feel they've met the criteria for number 1, number 2, especially. And number 3 is desired relief could be granted without causing substantial detriment to the public good without nullifying or subsequently derogating from the intent and purpose of the specific district ordinance or the ordinance in general. What do you gals want to do with this tonight? Do you want to, you feel everything's, yes, Ann Fullerton.
Madam Chair, I feel like Catherine's initial statement about the 3 criteria was actually the most succinct I've heard. Of all of the 3 criteria questions, number 1 for me is the most difficult. But I think her point about it being a larger than typical dormer and that is the unusual topography or characteristic that we're considering for this property is in line. I think number 3 is the easiest, that I think that the neighbors would appreciate not having more glazing. And number 2, it clearly is going to involve money, like some significant money to ownership that inherited this condition.
I agree. After this has been, I've been beating this up and reading it, trying to learn and stuff. But at the end of the day, I think that I agree with the 3 criterias. I think they've met them. I'm not happy about it. I'm not happy about the original contractor, how they, all that stuff does come into play, whether we're supposed to take it or not, like because of the financial hardship, that does come into play. They buy something in good faith. He messes up. Inspectional Services approves one thing. They come up with a second thing. It's all sloppy, and I can't, I think they're 99% there on proving their position. So, Catherine and Ann Brockelman, what do you feel?
I
think
agree.
Yeah.
Catherine summarized it all well.
Okay, so I think we've closed the public portion before, but I just want to make sure. Charlotte, could you please see if there's anybody here tonight for this case in the public domain there?
Yes, Madam Chair. At this time, there is 1 person in the audience. So, Erin, I will give you a moment to indicate whether or not you wish to speak.
Oh.
But they are not indicating that they wish to speak. And as they're the only person in the audience, I don't think there is anyone wishing to speak on this case.
Thank you for that courtesy. So at this point, I'm absolutely closing the public portion of 26 Clyde Street, number 2. That's case P&Z 22-010. Now I'm going to open it up. I believe everybody has really spoken, and I think Catherine Garavaglia, our acting clerk tonight, I see that she's writing away there, and I think she's putting her thoughts into place. I'd ask you to make a motion, Catherine. Does the clients, the Burnses, do you have anything else you'd like to add? Mr. Burns?
Nope, nothing else to add.
Nothing else to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And I just tell you, I mean, this must have been a learning experience for you guys as well. You should talk to this architect, like Ann said. And,
I mean, like you said
as we
earlier.
go forward doing anything else, I'd really do some homework on who you're getting to help you. All right.
Yeah.
Lessons learned.
Lessons learned. Yep.
I know it's hard, we get it, but we've also got to worry about the future and your neighbors. You might be gone out of there in a year, and then other people have to live with your stuff, So that's why we're here. Yeah. Okay, Ann Fullerton, yes. Hi, Ann.
Madam Chair, I would like to ask for a condition regarding the relief. I know that we're talking about there being a discrepancy between the dumb math that, I did and got to 9, and the applicant did and got to 9, and what is being noted by the planning team. And I would like there to be a condition that states that the existing condition is what is approved, regardless of exactly what that relief is, because I'm worried that there may actually be a glitch in the map.
Okay, so do you have something, how you'd like that written?
The existing window line condition.
Catherine? Charlotte?
Madam Chair, I think staff can write a condition that clearly encapsulates that the relief you're approving is what is currently built and that no further reduction in the number of windows would be permitted.
That answer your request, Ann? Thank you. Charlotte, Catherine, are you ready to go forward with a motion to articulate the way you did earlier?
Yes, Madam Chair, should I put together something related to the condition stating, that we would want the windows as in their current condition with that require no more than approximately 9 feet?
Charlotte, can you answer that, please?
Because the board has already discussed the findings, specifically addressing each finding and discussed the amount of relief provided, I think the board could say something along the lines of making a motion to grant the relief as discussed during this hearing with the conditions also discussed during the hearing and based on the findings also discussed during the hearing. I think the public record will successfully encapsulate what the board has talked about, and so your condition or your motion can just kind of like reference what you've already said without needing to repeat it.
And I just want to say one thing. Don't forget, when we get our meetings, our minutes of the meetings too, and you see these couple of tough cases and you've been very particular and articulate of what you want to express, make sure you proofread those. And when we come to our meeting to approve them, we can speak up if there's something you really don't like for the record. Correct, Charlotte?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
We try our best with the minutes, but
I know
we are
you're
always open to
wonderful.
corrections.
It's hard. Everybody's talking at you. We're all, it's different. Thank you. So, Ms. Catherine, yes.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the hardship variance requested by the applicants in P&Z 22-038 26 Clyde Street, where the applicants are requesting hardship variance related to dimensional violations with the building's dormers and not having a sufficient amount of window space as required under the code. And I'd like to make a motion to approve it as we've discussed, subject to the conditions that were highlighted by Ann Fullerton.
Thank you. Ann Brockelman seconded. Ann Fullerton, your vote, please.
Aye.
Catherine Garavaglia.
Aye.
Ann Brockelman.
Aye.
And Susan Fontano, aye. Let the record show that the vote to approve the variance was 100% for all 4 members voting in the affirmative. I'd like to thank everybody for their patience. I want to wish the Burnses good luck. Hope you enjoy your home. You have a nice working space now, and I want to thank our staff, Charlotte in the office, for all your help. We really picked your brains and you really helped us. This was a hard decision to make, and I think you did a wonderful job. And thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you for your time, Madam Chair, members of the board. Really appreciate it. And thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good luck. Is there, Charlotte, you still with us?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Is there any other business for the board tonight? Anybody? Any comments? No? Charlotte, do you have any comments?
It was not on the agenda and it's not something that we need to discuss tonight, but I do want to note that coming soon, we may be sending out an early packet or an early partial packet for the board to review because we are working on updating the submittal requirements. And that is a more substantial document than the typical cases that we give you. So if possible, I will try to send that around early. When we can discuss and vote on the submittal requirements, that will be a specific item of business on the agenda. But I just want to let you all know that if you get an early packet with a smaller portion of the topics on an agenda, that would be, don't be surprised. That is all.
What is the packet's going to include? What requirements?
So we're working on updating the submittal requirements that address what applicants have to submit to the board as part of their
I
application.
couldn't hear the word submittal. Okay.
Yep, I
get
kind of
it.
speed through it.
Yeah, no, I get it. That's good.
So we will have an opportunity to discuss it in much more depth once you've had an opportunity to review it.
Great. And then we thank you for the advice and the highlights you're giving us on these,
Of course.
you know,
We
the
are-
cases go forward. I hope we're getting it for you.
We are here to make the process as smooth as possible and help keep you guys on track. As long as you guys are considering the findings that you have to make, we are happy with whatever decision you make.
Great. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. So without further ado, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Seconded by Ann Brockleman. All in favor? Here we go. Ann Fullerton,
Aye.
Catherine Garavaglia,
Aye.
Ann Brockleman,
Aye.
and Susan Fontano, aye. The meeting's adjourned. Thank you, ladies, for all your expertise. You were right on tonight. Thank you.
Good night.
Congrats, Susan.
Good night.
Oh, yes, congrats to the chair. She's
Oh,
gone.
yeah, hey. I'm back. No. Thanks, guys. I really do
Good night.
appreciate it. Good
Night.
night.